Hello, and welcome to my video analysis on The Stranger by Albert Camus. The Stranger covers the story of the main character Marcel. The story begins after his mother's died and he goes to her funeral. He's very emotionally disconnected from all the events in the book. Marcel befriends this man named Raymond, who's a womanizing pimp. Through his relationship with Raymond, he eventually ends up murdering a man and faces trial for it. The Stranger communicates this idea that Camus called the absurd. The absurd is an existential crisis that an individual reaches once they come to the conclusion that there's no objective meaning. There's no God-given meaning. We're not decided by God to follow the Ten Commandments and treat others the way that we would like to be treated. But instead of being sad, in his essay, The Myth of Sisyphus, Albert Camus proposed that we imagine Sisyphus happy, Sisyphus being ourselves. Camus proposed that we enjoy what life does have to offer, like a cigarette on an evening or a nice sunset. What Camus proposed was largely hedonism, and I disagree with it. Nihilism from the absurd leads to alienation, and that's what Marcel suffers from. Another big concept in The Stranger is moral agnosticism. This is evident when Marcel judges Raymond to be the same as Celeste, who is a honest, good citizen who runs his own business. Marcel sees no distinction between the two because he really doesn't care. There's no meaning to him. So why would Raymond's actions be any worse or better as Celeste's? The most beneficial thing that I learned from reading The Stranger became evident when I started acting like Marcel. This was a very disturbing thing to me because I really don't like Marcel. I started working less. I started becoming more hedonistic. I was wasting my time. I played more video games than I ever have. And I just sounded like a crazy person whenever I was having a conversation with anyone. The truly scary thought is that reading The Stranger didn't make me act like Marcel. Reading The Stranger made me aware that I am acting like Marcel. If this is true, it's a bigger problem. Because this doesn't mean that a book made me act like Marcel. I've been Marcel this entire time. Reading The Stranger has also provided me intense awareness of my own actions and how I can change my behavior. It is essentially a guide on what not to do. While I'm not particularly religious, I like to think that my life has meaning. It seems to be kind of vague, which is something I need to work on. But I would say that I believe in a purpose for my life. This doesn't seem to be enough. From The Stranger, I have learned that if someone doesn't have a clear purpose in front of them, they're at high risk of turning to nihilism. The way that you can adapt to this is realize, yes, if I'm not religious, there's no reason for me to believe in an inherent objective meaning. But I still have a purpose in this world. There are still things that give me happiness. There are still goals for me to achieve. So I need to strive towards them for my sake. The most interesting thing to me in The Stranger was Marcel's introspection and the lack of it. Throughout the book, Marcel feels stress, grief, and what I would call mourning, but he doesn't understand any of these feelings. Marcel thinks that his stress and grief aren't stress or grief at all. They merely come from the sun. Marcel experiences these feelings of stress and grief at his mother's funeral, when he kills a man, and in his trial. These are all very stressful situations, but Marcel has no understanding that these feelings are internal emotions and not from an external source. I believe that the ray of sunshine was truly Marcel's feelings of stress, grief, and even mourning. Marcel believes that these negative emotions are coming from the sun so much that he even looks for treatment with crucian salts. The negative emotions that come from the sun at his mother's funeral lead me to question whether he actually did care about his mother. The most important insight that I learned from The Stranger is that I'm very close to Marcel. I could become like him at almost any moment. To avoid this, I need to discover a meaningful and worthwhile purpose for my life. All of this is in my best interest.